Oral questions. Leader of the Official Opposition.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, many MLAs received an email last week talking about the CPP tax hike, and the first quote was that they strongly opposed the CPP tax hike. The next was impeding our business growth and plans for expansion throughout the province, and talks about an additional $100,000 CPP tax cost. Basically, it was underlying the fact that this email was saying they're taxing New Brunswick businesses out of business. So I wondered if the Minister of Finance could give us any New Brunswick-specific report or document that she bases her analysis on that allowed her to go ahead with these signing on to the CPP changes here the other week, or was this just another example of Justin Trudeau telling the federal Liberal House Leader to tell the Premier, and the Premier says, where do I sign?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to get up in the House today and talk about the amazing enhancement to the National Canadian Pension Plan that we were able to make by collaborating and cooperating with our federal and provincial counterparts across the country. We now have a plan, Mr. Speaker, that we actually took into consideration first and foremost how any changes or enhancements would impact business in New Brunswick. This was a priority with which I went to meet my colleagues across the country, and it is exactly the reason why we agreed in principle to a plan that was modest, fully funded, and phased in. In fact, we considered the impact on business and the impact on individuals as our highest priority, and now we have a plan for today's workers.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if the Minister had a plan that she said they took into account first and foremost the effect on New Brunswick businesses, why are New Brunswick businesses saying, hey, you're forcing us out of business because of your plan? Mr. Speaker, there are various options that could have been looked at, but the fact of the matter is that the Minister is taking more money out of the businesses, the hands of businesses that could have gone to hiring new employees or buying new equipment, which would also lead to new jobs. And you would think that a government that had a priority for creating jobs and moving the economy forward would have a report that would show that. So I'm asking the Minister, would the Minister be able to tell us what is the total cost of the implementation of the new HST increase and the new CPP taxation on the payroll of the businesses here in the province of New Brunswick?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
What I am able to say, Mr. Speaker, is that there will be no rollout of this plan until 2019, and it will be phased in slowly over 7 years until 2025. This will be a plan that will help today's younger workers fund their own pension plan. And Mr. Speaker, it's been looked at by many businesses as a great plan because they aren't providing the whole in this. They're making half the contribution and the employees are making the other half of the contribution. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, this was not something that was done suddenly. This has been well discussed over many years, in fact, quite a lot since 2010. And many businesses are pleased that this is being done. I've spoken to
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Well, once again, Mr. Speaker, the Minister is unable to come up with the number that was asked for here in the Legislature. Mr. Speaker, we've asked for New Brunswick-specific results in how exactly this will affect the businesses in the province of New Brunswick, because we've had an email that has said it's going to basically tax them out of business. So I wonder if the Minister could release any reports or documents that she received that had New Brunswick-based information that would go forward that we could look at, because she's alluded alluded to it many times here in question period. They have a chief economist. What's the chief economist been doing? Or are they hiding the document behind closed doors? So, Mr. Speaker, I wonder if the minister can tell us basically when it comes to public service pension plans, if the benefits that are going to be received by CPP in the future will be stacked or will be offset, and how does that compare to the Ontario plan?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
I'd like to clarify that, first of all, we didn't agree in principle to an Ontario plan. We have a national plan, and we're very happy about that. And as well, you know, enhancing this plan, we took into consideration things like how much earnings does someone need to replace their earned income when they retire. So this enhancement has enabled workers to have one-third of their replacement income instead of one-quarter. Mr. Speaker, 75% of Canadians identified that they would support a CPP enhancement of this kind. Many employers today do not offer a private pension plan. As well, many young workers today work in non-standard work. They're not able to save for their future. And Mr. Speaker, this is a role of government, and we're taking our role seriously.
Prime Minister, Leader of the Official Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if the minister was taking the role of government serious, then there should have been a report or some type of document that she could release so that we could see these numbers that all of a sudden she's able to say on the floor of the legislature. Mr. Speaker, we have real facts here that we're showing from businesses that have said that this government had no mandate whatsoever to go ahead with that. And the fact of the matter is, Minister didn't answer the question of comparing our pension plan in New Brunswick with that of Ontario. And Mr. Speaker, when you look at the fact that there was some significant differences between those two pension plans, then the minister should be asking the question, well, why was Ontario pushing this so much? Well, they were pushing it so much because they haven't made some hard decisions with their public service pension plans that were made here in the province of New Brunswick. So I wonder, could the minister release the reports that she has referred to many times over and over again here in question period today?
The Honourable Premier.
Well, Mr. Speaker, since the same question has been asked several times, I'll get up and ask a few questions of my own. What I don't understand is why the opposition, number one, wouldn't get up today and talk about how fantastic it is that the Trudeau government believes in Atlantic Canada and will allow us 2,000 more immigrants, 2,000 more people to Atlantic Canada with their families per year to ensure that we have a growing population and a skilled workforce right here at home. I also don't understand why the member opposite hasn't got up yet to apologize for the warehouse comment. Seems to me if his own colleague is asking him to clarify his comments that he would do so in the legislature today. And the next question that I have for the member opposite, since he has these questions for the Minister of Finance, I think he should and must clarify with the people of New Brunswick. So clearly he's against the CPP enhancement that is going forward under the Trudeau government. Yes or no, Mr. Speaker?
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Premier obviously is missing his day in opposition because he likes to ask questions. I'll tell you, given 2 years, you'll be back here asking the questions again. Mr. Speaker, we're asking how these changes affect the people of New Brunswick, because obviously it was not a mandate that was given by the people of the province of New Brunswick, and yet there's changes that have been made over time that reduce the abilities for people to save on their own, like the reduction in the tax-free savings account. And Mr. Speaker, when it comes to apologizing, again, I think the Premier has to ask some of his members, like the former Deputy Premier who was demoted from the Justice Department because of some inadvertent conversations he had with judges. So why doesn't the Premier set the stage here today, ask the Minister to get up and apologize for things that he said here in the House, and then went out later and said, no, that wasn't the truth at all, I lied.
The Honourable Premier.
First off, Mr. Speaker, I don't like the conversation about mandate because I think that when you go into an election, there are many discussions about many portfolios. But if the member opposite wants to ask that question, I think the Trudeau government that promised an enhancement to the CPP did pretty well in New Brunswick during the election. I think with the 10 seats on 10, Mr. Speaker, clearly New Brunswickers are interested in the Trudeau government's focus on growth and probably an extension to that, the CPP enhancement. So I ask the member opposite again, because he cannot have it both ways. He cannot question the free tuition bill and then say that he's for it. He cannot go and say that it's the worst thing ever and that we're trying to divide New Brunswickers and say he's for it. They can't go and say and criticize us because we hadn't made an announcement on the Port of St. John yet, but yet they don't go and attack Rodney Weston for making a fake announcement. So I ask the member opposite to confirm, Mr. Speaker, is the opposition for the CPP enhancement, yes or no?
Leader of the official opposition.
Again, I think the Premier showed many, many times in this House that he does say one thing and does another. I've asked for the reports based on the CPP information that I've received from the public that they're taxing businesses out of business because of the HST increase, payroll increases, and also now with CPP increases. That's the report I'm looking for. The Premier is, again, trying to distract away from those facts. So we'll ask for maybe the Minister of Economic Development if ONB has any reports that would say the effects of CPP increases here in the businesses of the province of New Brunswick. And while you're at it, Minister, shuffling through the papers on your desk, could you come up and tell us why ONB has not released their annual report to date?
The Honourable Premier.
Thank you very much for the condescending question. Mr. Speaker, I ask the member opposite again to clarify, is he for or against the CPP enhancement? Mr. Speaker, I don't know. When I'm listening to the opposition, the tone they're using, the words they're using, quoting emails that are clearly not supportive of the CPP enhancement, I have the impression they're against it. So why is it so hard for the opposition to get up and let the people in New Brunswick know if they are for or against the CPP enhancement? Mr. Speaker, the opposition has a role to play to keep us to account and ask questions. Yes, absolutely. They also have a role to play, Mr. Speaker, in offering alternatives, offering ideas, offering suggestions. And Mr. Speaker, even, I know it goes against every bone in their body, but even it includes saying when they agree with the government. So do they support a CPP enhancement, yes or no?
Member for Fredericton Grand Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the risk of insulting the Premier again, I am still looking for an answer to my questions about roads in my riding being damaged by overweight log trucks on Portobello Drive and McCoy Street. To review, a special permit was issued for the logging operation to haul on these roads. This permit specifically excluded a cost for damages clause. Most extended permits like this clearly tell the contractor that the minister will come back to them to recover monies for making repairs to damage caused by the hauling operation. In this case, the permit has omitted this requirement. My question remains, why was this clause excluded?
The Honourable the Premier.
Well, the member opposite had her question answered last week, Mr. Speaker, by the minister. He'll get up and answer it again. But I'd like to point out to her that we still have not gotten an answer on whether her party supports the CPP enhancement. We have still not gotten an answer, Mr. Speaker, from the member just in front of her from Portland Simons on when he is going to criticize Rodney Weston for a fake announcement to invest in the Port of St. John. We still don't know if the opposition supports the Trudeau government's plan to give more new Canadians in Atlantic Canada for us to grow our workforce. We still don't know, Mr. Speaker, if the member opposite is going to apologize for his comments about a warehouse for seniors on the Miramichi. So I invite the member opposite, if she would like to get up and lecture us about questions that have already actually been answered, that she ask her leader, she ask her party to answer the questions, take positions, and be real leaders for the province of New Brunswick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, it's clear that the Premier certainly doesn't want to answer my questions, but I'm sure everything is fine in his riding of Shediac Bay Dieppe. Mr. Speaker, this is clearly damage being done to the streets as a result of this overweight hauling, and that damage must be repaired. Since there is no requirement for the contractor to pay to fix a street, then of course it comes out of the pocket of the taxpayers. That doesn't seem fair, and it doesn't seem responsible on this part of the government. My constituents want to know if there was any political interference in allowing this operation and in the exclusion of the cost for damages clause, as has been suggested in the media. Has the minister looked into these allegations of political interference?
Honourable Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased to get up and answer the question from the member from Fredericton Grand Lake.
Member for Grant,
Mr.
Jean
Speaker.
Petitcodiac will come to order again.
Thank
Please
you.
continue.
You know, this is purely political rhetoric that's coming from the member from Fredericton Grand Lake. She talks about her riding. She hasn't even been on the site. I've been on the site. I met with the neighbors on the
Order.
site. I met with the contractor that's hauling and has the permit on the site, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, yes, there is such clauses in some of these contracts, and this one DTI didn't put a clause in, and the reason they didn't put a clause in because there is no impact from the axle configuration and the weight configuration in this special permit. It's actually less impact on the road than it would be if they were able to haul on the regular legal limit that they are allowed to haul at any time. The special permit that was issued by DTI allows the company to come and...
Order, Minister. Time, Minister. Member for Fredericton Grand Lake.
Well, that certainly didn't make any sense, Mr. Speaker, but however, if it's political for me to stand up and represent my riding, then I'll be political anytime. If there was indeed political interference in the granting... If there was indeed political interference in the granting of an overweight permit and in the exclusion of a clause requiring the contractor to pay for repairs to the road, then the taxpayers have a right to know. What is this minister prepared to do to refute these allegations, and what is he prepared to do if these allegations should prove to be true? Of course, we have filed a right to information request, but that could take months. The people of my riding are entitled to an answer today. What will the minister say to them?
The Honourable Minister, Department of Transportation and Infrastructure.
Mr. Speaker, the process for uprating and for special permits has been in place for more than a decade, and it is used as a temporary increase, a highway rating for commercial trucking. In this case, a 7-axle 50,000 kilogram configuration was approved. It was determined that the impact to roads would be less than the 5-axle 41,500 kilogram configuration that is actually legal to haul on that road without a permit. And because of that, Mr. Speaker, a special permit was issued because it would be considered to be less trips on that road. And I might add, if the member from Grand Lake, Fredericton, had visited the site, she would know that there's a quarry at the end of the road that there's continuously dump trucks hauling on that road. The day that I went to visit the site and met with the neighbors on the road, who actually told me there was no concern and they were fine with it, I seen at least a dozen dump trucks carrying gravel out of the gravel pit that is permanently housed at the end of the road.
Member for Carlton York.
Mr. Speaker, it's quite clear what our new, I had hoped our new transportation minister would for the rural roads in New Brunswick. But our Premier's made it very clear that speaking about rural roads is a waste of his time. But the people in Carlton York are very concerned. Again on the weekend, a lady in Millville lost 2 tires and damage to her vehicle, and she's still shaken up. She finds that very important. You've increased the HST, you've promised $900 million to infrastructure, and still the roads in Carlton York have not even been patched, let alone repaired. Will the Premier commit to increasing the patch crews and give the people of rural New Brunswick the same privilege of good roads as the people of Shediac, Bay Dieppe? Now, if he does, I would gladly talk about the CPP with him. I'll take a drive with him out through Pike Hill and through Temperance Vale and through some of these roads that I'll have to use his vehicle because I'm certainly not putting my vehicle over them roads.
The Honourable Premier.
The level of debate has certainly rose here, Mr. Speaker. Clearly, the opposition are for roads in their ridings. Clearly, they're for roads in their ridings. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to say that the Conservatives have been in power, about 11 out of the 16 last years in New Brunswick, Mr. Speaker. So if they had issues with the roads, why didn't they do something about it then, Mr. Speaker?
Order, Minister.
So they are for roads in their ridings. Are they for the CPP enhancement? Are they for the program that will bring more new Canadians and their families to New Brunswick and Atlantic Canada? Will they finally criticize Rodney Weston to the extent they criticized us, Mr. Speaker, based on his fake announcement for the Port of St. John? And Mr. Speaker, will they get up and apologize, as the member opposite from Miramichi asked his colleague to do, based on the comment of calling a nice nursing home that will help seniors on the Miramichi a warehouse?
Member for Carleton York.
And that, New Brunswick, is your premier. It's July.
Order.
It's July. Roads should have long since been done. Rural villages, in our belief, that there should be at least one good road to every major centre. With all kinds of money now, with no concerns of the debt, will the Premier commit to the Rural Road Initiative that will let the rural community and rural New Brunswick know when the roads are going to be done? With the Rural Road Initiative, the rural residents will at least know when it's done. If it's not going to be done this year, when will it be done? And if it's not on the list for this year, when it will be done. They need some support. And again, I'll take you over our back roads and we'll talk about your little issues.
The Honourable Minister of Transportation Infrastructure.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite is right. That's our Premier, and we're darn proud of our Premier on this side of the House, Mr. Speaker. And in terms of rural roads, there's lists of work that's being done in each and every one of the ridings of the members opposite, which I can say, from being on that side of the House 4 years ago, it was complete opposite, Mr. Speaker. They politicize roads. We're not. We're going to get the work done where the work needs to be done, Mr. Speaker, and I can assure you that with my predecessor, the former Minister of DTI, who had a great program in place and a significant budget in place, we're going to continue the great work on our rural roads in each and every riding where they're needed, Mr. Speaker, not just in government ridings. We're going to do it wherever it's needed across the province, unlike what they used to do when they were in government 4 years ago, Mr. Speaker.
Yay, Billy.
$20.3 million in summer maintenance money is allocated in the budget this year to do maintenance on our roads across this wonderful province, and we're going to continue to do that work.
Member for Carleton York.
What they're saying, what the Premier's telling us, the rural New Brunswick, that they have no initiative and no intent of creating any initiative. Or they don't have any kind of plan or any initiative for rural New Brunswick. The roads will continue to deteriorate. Buses will continue to go off the road in the wintertime. People will continue to go and get stuck in the middle of the road in rural New Brunswick. Mr. Speaker, this crowd isn't worth another question. Please move on to the next speaker.
The Honourable Minister of the Department of Transportation Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, again, to reiterate the significant investment that we're putting in rural roads and in roads all across this great province on our summer maintenance program, $20.3 million in the budget this year, Mr. Speaker, which will see more than 700 kilometers of roads will be resurfaced and more than 215 kilometers of asphalt surfaces will be placed this year, Mr. Speaker, with our budget. Very proud of our Premier and all the members on this side of the House. We're going to get the job done, the job that they didn't get done for 4 years, Mr. Speaker. Again, I'd remind the member opposite to look at what was happening 4 years ago. It's a saying. When the Liberals are in power, people are working, roads are getting done, and when the Tories are in power, it's tough times for the province and there's no work to be done.
Leader of the third party.
Mr. Speaker, we're failing to meet national benchmarks for patient wait times in our emergency departments for our hospitals. Yesterday, the Campbellton Regional Hospital issued a statement asking the public to refrain from using that ER wherever possible because they are overwhelmed. In Campbellton, Mr. Speaker, they're overwhelmed. We're not even talking about the Chalmers or the St. John Regional or the Moncton hospitals. There are frequent examples where timely care falls short of our standards and places the health of New Brunswickers at risk. Will the Minister of Health acknowledge we have a crisis of access to wait times in our ERs?
Honourable Minister of Health.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, il faut croire que le député de l'opposition n'a pas pu se préparer des nouvelles questions pour cette semaine parce que c'est les mêmes questions qu'il m'a posées la semaine dernière. Et j'ai répondu, Monsieur le Président. Nous avons plusieurs initiatives en marche pour adresser la question des temps d'attente. Mais ce n'est pas quelque chose qui se change du jour au lendemain. Il faut changer la mentalité des gens, il faut changer les habitudes des gens, il faut s'assurer que nous maximisons chacun de nos professionnels de la santé dans notre système pour aller chercher le maximum de chacun que nous puissions faire, Monsieur le Président. C'est pour ça que des projets comme le projet que nous entamons avec la Société médicale, des projets comme l'initiative que nous envisageons avec Médavis, ce sont tous des projets, nos investissements dans Chez Soi d'abord. Ce sont tous des projets, Monsieur le Président, des initiatives pour faire en sorte qu'il y ait de moins en moins de gens qui se rendent aux salles d'urgence pour que les gens qui ont vraiment besoin de ce service puissent avoir accès plus rapidement.
Leader of the third party.
Mr. Speaker, it's interesting in the Telegraph Journal today it was reported that Dr. Merlonson, Chief of Staff at the Moncton Hospital, was saying how stressed their emergency room is, that patients are waiting hours to see a physician, so they put in a pilot project to divert patients from the ER by booking them appointments at local clinics. But the point he makes is that the Medicare formula, the Medicare allocation formula in our hospitals right now is forced. Their forced use has been described as antiquated. This has led to underfunding and short staffing in emergency departments. A modest adjustment to the formula that the Minister's Department provides to our hospitals could reduce ER wait times. So the Minister, by modestly adjusting the Medicare formula, could help address the wait times in our emergency departments. Will he do so?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, encore une fois, le député de l'opposition pense qu'il y a des solutions miracles à la situation que nous faisons face. Il n'y en a pas de solution miracle. Ça va prendre plusieurs initiatives de plusieurs différents partenaires dans le système de soins de santé pour arriver à réduire les temps d'attente dans les salles d'urgence. Le député a mentionné le projet pilote qui a été annoncé par la Moncton City Hospital aujourd'hui. Monsieur le Président, moi je pense que c'est fantastique. Je pense que c'est une belle initiative de voir un hôpital prendre une démarche du genre pour pouvoir justement essayer de faire un meilleur triage, de prendre le temps d'expliquer aux gens qui vont à l'urgence qu'il y a d'autres opportunités, d'autres occasions, d'autres endroits où ils peuvent aller pour avoir les soins primaires qu'ils ont besoin et qu'ils n'ont pas toujours besoin d'aller à la salle d'urgence. Alors moi, j'applaudis l'hôpital de Moncton pour avoir fait cette initiative, Monsieur le Président.
Leader of the third party.
Mr. Speaker, the other thing the Moncton Hospital has done is it incorporated 2 nurse practitioners into its emergency department in 2009. That's made some difference in their ER workload. Their experience could be used to develop a mentor program to expand use of this model across the province in all of our hospitals, including Campbellton, which has just warned their people to stay away unless it's a real emergency. Last week I suggested this exact same thing to the Minister, that it be implemented throughout our hospital system. Is the Minister willing to apply the lessons learned at the Moncton Hospital to reduce ER wait times for all New Brunswickers?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the member knows very well that that's what a pilot project is all about. The Moncton City Hospital announced that they were going to do a better job not do a better job, but approach triaging in a different way and try to make it so that the people who are, level 3, 4, and 5, give them other options to be able to get access to that primary treatment. And, I learned of this just late on Friday. It was announced yesterday. I think this is a good initiative, but it is a pilot project. So yes, we will follow the results of this pilot project, see how it goes, and see if other hospitals can adopt a similar approach. But it comes back to the point that there are many initiatives that we are trying to bring forward as a government, and I just wish that the opposition would be collaborative and participate in these initiatives as opposed to constantly getting up in the House and criticizing them, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Fredericton North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, we've got a new Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure. I just want to bring him up to speed on the Hanwell Road project. We all recall that Hanwell Road was found to be one of the worst roads in Canada, and so back in 2013, more than $2 million was allocated to that project to completely widen and rebuild Hanwell Road. So it was 3 phases. In 2014, the land was purchased, the land was cleared, and the land was prepared, and the utilities were moved. In 2015, the upper portion of Hanwell Road was paved, and in 2016, we were due to complete the rest of the paving and finish the job. Mr. Speaker, it's 2016, it hasn't been done. I'm wondering if the minister could just tell us when they're going to finish the job and pave the rest of Hanwell Road.
Recognize the Honourable Premier.
Monsieur le Président, premièrement, je demanderais aux députés de l'opposition qu'est-ce que lui a fait, qu'est-ce qu'eux ont fait lorsqu'ils étaient au gouvernement, Monsieur le Président. Il y a eu des investissements très importants qui ont été faits dans la rue, Monsieur le Président, et le ministre est bien fier d'en parler avec le député de l'opposition. Par contre, encore une fois, ça démontre que l'opposition est concentrée sur les routes. Et pas les routes du Nouveau-Brunswick, les routes dans leur circonscription. Alors je demande encore une fois, peut-être le député de l'opposition, qui est un chef pour devenir leader du Parti conservateur, va nous dire c'est quoi sa position. Et peut-être le député de Quispam 6 va nous dire sa position. Et peut-être le député de l'opposition de Miramichi va nous dire sa position sur le renforcement du RPC, Monsieur le Président. Je ne comprends pas comment l'opposition peut se mettre debout, demander des questions, critiquer le programme, mais pas nous dire si ils sont pour ou contre. En effet, Monsieur le Président, les gens de Nouveau-Brunswick méritent bien mieux que ça.
Time for the question period has expired.